It was a sign of success a few years ago, getting those milestones of followers and whatnot, but it doesn't mean anything really. I was living an inauthentic life for so long when I was living in the cities. I was following trends and I wasn't connected, I wasn't grounded, I was blowing in the wind.
At what point did you think, I've become a new person?
As a society, what I think we're dealing with is a nature deficiency. There's so much story and wisdom locked and folklore locked within them that it is spiritual, it has to be. Turn the lawn into a farm. The lawn is the greatest scam that's ever existed.
You went through a process of having to open your eyes and becoming more aware. Looking back at your time in the city, do you think that you were struggling with awareness and consciousness?
I'm determined now to break free from all these things so that I can be present and encourage other people to break free and be present.
There's a guy called Galahad Clark who does Vivo Barefoot. Do you know Vivo Barefoot? And he's from the Clark family. You're not from the sunglass family, are you?
I'm not, sadly. I wouldn't be here otherwise.
Would you?
On an island somewhere.
With a trust fund, though.
Yeah.
With a trust fund.
No relation to me, unfortunately.
So obviously the people watching this, welcome to the John Wizard podcast, haven't seen you just make some amazing ferments. They haven't seen that. But it just for those people watching this, what's just happened?
Well, it's quite eventful, actually. I thought I'd have struggle with what to say, to be honest with you, but we were doing a ferment showing people how to preserve their harvests. Since growing my own food, I realized how much of a monopoly the supermarkets have on us, and I need to find a way to preserve those harvests for the colder times when that those crops aren't growing. So I showed people how to make an immune boosting sauerkraut with chard and carrots and various spices, and then I showed the power of fermentation by unveiling a 2-year-old ferment, which was my chilies that I picked in 2024 in the autumn, and I fermented them in salt, just like I did with my sauerkraut, and then I blitzed it into a hot sauce and then passed it around for people to try, and it blew your head off, didn't it?
Okay, so
my nose is burning. Actually, it must have touched my nose.
Oh, well, so I'm trying because what happened was someone said, would you like to try this? And I missed the bit where you talked about the chili. I thought it was gazpacho. I downed some, and I saw it. I could say, why is everyone's eyes doing this? It's only soup. But it wasn't soup.
It's literally the hottest chilies that you can grow. So California Reapers, Scotch bonnets, cayenne pepper I had in there, and a few others. I can't remember what I actually grew, but those two were definitely in there.
Thank you so much. You're kind of like Jesus, aren't you? A little bit.
No, I'm not.
Or are you just a very naughty boy?
No.
To quote Life of Brian. But no, you're an inspiration to how many? I mean, we shouldn't talk about followers. Jesus had 12.
I'm actually just a normal person, but I happen to, and I'm from the culinary background. I was a chef originally. Started a YouTube channel, sharing my recipes. Now it's a food show and just documents my lifestyle. But 1.8 million subscribers on YouTube, 1.7 on Instagram. But I don't care for all that now. We'll talk about it more. And actually, it was a sign of success a few years ago, getting those milestones of followers and whatnot, but it doesn't mean anything really.
There wasn't a linear graph, your happiness versus followers. There wasn't some...
At one point, I didn't know that I was living an inauthentic life for so long when I was living in the cities. I was, following trends, and I wasn't connected. I wasn't grounded. I was blowing in the wind and following, the latest thing, or getting that milestone of reaching a certain amount of followers. But now I feel I know what's real in life, and I found it through connecting to nature and growing my own food and living the way I have been lately, or striving to live. So yes, that doesn't mean as much to me anymore.
Your family background, were you, desert island disc style? Were you born to like a lord and a lady in the manor?
My dad could say he's a lord if he wanted to. Typical upbringing in Cardiff, in Wales. Very proud to be Welsh. I went to a normal school. My sort of my major aspiration as a kid was to play rugby for Wales, like most kids in Wales. So that was my thing. I reached my peak actually in rugby at age 11 when I played in the Millennium Stadium, and then everyone got big, and I just stayed the same for a while. So rugby didn't take off. But luckily, cooking was my backup, and my dad cooked at home every evening for the family because it was a passion that he had. So I just sort of thought that's what you did with the family. And became obsessed with like Michael Pierre White and Gordon Ramsay. And at 15, I found myself getting a part-time job at a local hotel restaurant, and the rest was history, really.
Well, we're lucky enough within our business to work with Marco.
Oh, really?
Gordon Ramsay was one of the people that gave us like the best newcomer award back in 2004 with people like Jay Rayner and Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall and various others.
No.
But have you ever heard the story, and this comes back to your experience as a chef, the culture of being a chef? So what was it like as a chef? Was it the classic Kitchen Confidential toxic environment? Was it a beautiful, natural, loving experience? What was your experience? And what sort of chef were you initially? Sous chef or kitchen porter or KP, or what was the experience?
Well, I started off at the very sort of bottom, really, commis chef. I mean, it could have gone low. I could have been a kitchen porter, and there was times where, you know, if there's no kitchen porter, the commis chef is doing that. So I started off with the peeling, you know, following chefs around. You're like a sponge, really, trying to soak up as much knowledge as you can. And the environment was tough. I mean, they didn't take it easy on me. And this is going back like 17 years ago when I first stepped in a kitchen. Now I am actually 33 now. Can't believe that. And it was hard. You know, your social life just goes. All my friends are off chasing girls and going out off to university, and I'm just, you know, working the long shift, 80-hour weeks. Occasionally get a break in the day. I'm sleeping in my car, not really eating very well because
I mean, that's the classic, isn't it?
You?
Chefs eat pot noodle and toast.
I would be going to McDonald's on my lunch break just to get something fast, calories in me. It was awful. It was, you know, I had this drive, I had this passion. But it wasn't sustainable, especially being so young and not knowing how to look after myself, not exercising, not sleeping properly, not eating. So it caught up with me. And after like 5 or 6 years, I was burnt out completely, like a ghost of myself. And I had to take a break from the industry. But that happening was the sort of catalyst to now having this social media following and the life I live now.
What year was that you were
23, about 10 years ago.
And that transition from being burnt out, was it? There's a book called Save the Cat about how to write a movie. I don't know when everyone knows it. It's like the idea there's only 12 stories and every story has the same beats. And there's a dark night of the soul in every movie where all is lost. And was there a sort of dark night of the soul for you in terms of your burnout moment? Were you sitting there in your bedroom, or were you in your car? Or what was that dark night of the soul for you?
I realized that I was working at an amazing restaurant, and I was like, I was so young, and I just knocked on the door of the restaurant, asking to work for free to show the chef that I was passionate. And I remember it was a real tough environment, and I was there for quite a while, but mistakes started slipping in because, you know, it's just not looking after yourself. And I just remember this episode with some potato fondants that I had to prepare, and chef calls for them as a check comes on, and I totally forgot about them. Opened the oven, they were black, and it was just calamity. And then, you know, if one thing goes wrong at the start of service, then everything goes wrong, and it's just a mess. And I broke down after that, and I know it's just potato fondants and it's not life changing, but it is when you're in the kitchens. It's like, it feels like the whole world was going to swallow me up at that point, and it's no way to live, really. And I always vowed that when I got my own restaurant, I wouldn't treat my staff like that. You know, there would be enough staff so that everyone could sort of have enough time to enjoy the creative process and give their full passion and productivity to the job and not be burnt out. But even when I've done my own pop-ups in the past over the last few years, I'm still working like I did in the kitchen, because it's like a work rate that's within inside you that the kitchens give you. And it's something I'm trying to unlearn now as I reach a new point in my life with a new baby, is like not saying yes to everything, not working constantly. It's about being more present. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that further on.
So the 10 years ago, can we talk a little, just deep dive on that transition? So you left the restaurant that night. Did you sort of resign? Were you fired? What happened in terms of that transition to your new life?
It wasn't that night, but it was like, that was the catalyst. And then I was offered like to go to another restaurant around the corner that was up and coming, and they offered me like 4 days on, 3 days off, which they, never materialized. But I told the head chef, that I was leaving, and someone I really respect now because he was so knowledgeable. And the chefs turned on me. It's like the family, one of the members of the family is letting the team down, the brigade down. And I said I'd work my notice, but the atmosphere that, I was in was just awful. And I couldn't take it. So I was like, I'm just going. So I packed up my things and I left. I didn't turn up for the next shift. And I don't recommend doing that now, really. Or maybe I probably would do, but it's like I cut ties there that I wish would still exist. And I went to this new place that they promised me the 4 days on, 3 days off. Didn't happen. And then at that point, my dad, who worked at a sort of a building supply company, just said, there's a job going on the builder's yard. Just come back. It was like double the money I was I was earning as a chef. And I was just working 40 hours a week. So I went there just to recuperate. And, losing that personality, that passion, and just loading builders' trucks was just like soul destroying. So thankfully, social media was brewing then, and cooking just at home for my family and I was enjoyable. And I started sharing the recipes just through photos on my phone.
What was the first one you shared? There's someone called Asti Wagner who has a company called Invited. It's an influencer company, and she's a very good blogger now on food. And the first ever one that she posted, if you go back and you flick it enough, it's like pasta with cheese about 6 years ago. And that was her beginning.
Mine was
of a
way
big.
more
What was
exciting.
yours? What was
Porridge.
yours? Porridge. Oh.
So basically,
But not prison.
I was so run down. I was so sort of, I wasn't feeling good. I actually did, try and get to the gym, and I was getting stronger because I thought to myself, I'll play rugby again. I was eating like quite a calorific, high protein diet, and I wasn't feeling good. So I decided to look into like plant-based, and I started eating plant-based food, feeling a lot better, avoiding processed foods. And the first dish that I shared was porridge. Did all right, actually. Yeah. And then I just, it's just fun. It was being creative, taking photos of food and my recipes. And then I don't know if you heard it in the fermentation workshop, I reached 7,000 followers on Instagram, having shared a few photos of my food. And I quit that job working at the Builders Centre and just gave it my all on social media. And having watched Gordon Ramsay, having watched Mark Peter White and Rick Stein on TV, I thought, well, I'll go over to YouTube and show people how to make the food. But that was really embarrassing. But I stuck at it, and now I'm doing all right on that.
You didn't delete those; they're still available.
They're not there now. No, gosh, it's a painful watch. Well, but someone did say it saved the recipes that I shared in those early videos saved their like Christmas, because I cooked Christmas meal, Christmas recipes, and I thought I'll keep going then, and got more comfortable as I went on.
Well, it just shows, doesn't it? There's perfection is a process, and perfection requires failure. Not failure, but learning. At what point did you think I've become a new person? Was there a moment when you look back and thought, wow, I've really become somebody that I'm surprised about, someone that there's a new Gaz Oakley in town? Was there a moment where you thought that, or was it just a linear process?
I think more so recently.
Yeah.
Especially, I wouldn't have imagined myself drinking out of a bottle gourd that I grew in my greenhouse, and now I'm just so proud to walk around London with it. Tastes so good. I briefly touched on it earlier, but despite growing this social media, doing the YouTube, something that people would only dream of doing, I was quite sad a lot of the time. I was anxious, and the only thing that would make me feel okay would be if I was just on the go all the time. And it was like pre-COVID times when everything was taken off, and the influencer world was like really, really busy. So I was traveling, I was doing events, I was doing things like this and filming there and doing crazy cool collaborations, and it would keep me very preoccupied. But as soon as I stopped, I was in this sort of rut, and I'd feel quite down. And that's because now looking back, I had no real grounding, and it was during COVID where I decided I must learn how to grow my food, because I didn't know where it was coming from. And that journey of connecting to nature and growing my food in the last 5 years has now made me feel like, wow, who is this Gaz Oakley? But it now feels like I'm being my most authentic self. And that person, that young person that was lost or was just following trends, was just someone that was just trying to fit in. I wish I could just, well, that's why I do what I do now, is to tell those people that may feel lost or feel stressed and anxious that actually, as a society, what I think we're dealing with is a nature deficiency. And that's what I had. I had this deficiency that I had to cure through the things that we're going to talk about now.
And is the nature deficiency both a sort of spiritual deficiency and a physical deficiency? Is it or is it purely a physical deficiency that I think people have?
I think if you were to ask me this question like 5 years ago, I would have said, "Oh, I'm not like a woo-woo person." But I think there's something about being connected to the land and the earth that does make you think a little bit more spiritually. I mean, we're governed by the elements around us, the seasons. I was someone that grew up in cities all my life, never grew anything. The only time I touched nature was really if I played rugby or football and smelt mud on my shirt, or touched the sand on holiday at the beach. When it would rain, I would just be mad, living in cities. Oh, it's awful. This is disgusting. I got to go. But, now being in tune with those seasons, it's like they're there for a reason. And we're so connected. Like, it gets really woo-woo and spiritual, actually, especially when you look at how the indigenous cultures from Wales to the Americas, how they grew in cycle with the moon cycles. And that's something that I'm incorporating into my growing, looking at the wisdom of the herbs that are just classed as weeds that I once just walked by. There's so much story and wisdom locked and folklore locked within them that it is spiritual. It has to be. So it gives you great grounding. For so long I was just blowing in the wind, and now I feel like my roots are grown with my plant.
So your dad, even though he was a cook, was your dad into what you might call natural medicine, plant medicine, instinctively, or just not at all?
No, neither of my parents, which is a shame. However, my mum was born in Devon, which sometimes I'm afraid to say, I want to be fully Welsh, but Devonshire, I like Devon. So anyway, that's cool. But she had a bit more of a country upbringing. And every time I introduce her to a new herbal plant or a remedy or something in forest, she said, "Oh yeah, my dad taught me that." I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me?" But it's so easy to forget when you live in the city of convenience all around you, and you don't walk past those plants every day, or you don't grow your food, or you're not in nature, or all you hear is cars and not birds. It's very easy to forget that there's a natural world out there. In fact, on the drive to London today, gosh, it was actually, because I haven't been out of the country for a while, it was weird to not hear the birds, to not see greenery. I don't want to sound depressed at all, because I'm not, but when I left this morning, and it was the rain was sideways, it was crazy, but this felt something beautiful, and I was so happy the rain was there, because it's going to be hot now for the next few days. And then got in the car and I drove to London. I looked out and I was stuck in traffic, and I thought I was in hell. And I know that sounds really horrible, but I couldn't connect to anything there. And I'm like, I grew up in cities, and it's taken me 5 years to feel this way. And I would love for you to look at my blood prior and now. And that's why I do social media still today, and the videos, is to try and encourage people to get the therapy of connecting to the land and learning about plants and being outside. It's so important, and it can be done in the city. And a big regret that I have actually is not utilising that small balcony that was probably the size of this stage to grow some of my food when I lived in London, or going for foraging walks through the parks. Because we could go for a walk in the park nearby here now, and I would point out to you a ton of different amazing herbs, and I brought some along today if I could
please
talk about some. All right, because as I said, these herbs have really helped connect me to the people before us. Yes, so mullein.
Good for the lungs.
Exactly, yeah. It's a brilliant herb for the respiratory system. My dad, unfortunately, had a big accident and a lung issue for a number of months, and I made him a tincture with this mullein, and I encourage him to drink as much mullein tea as possible with the mullein that I foraged or picked in my garden and foraged from parks.
Is it from fresh or dried when you make the tea?
For tea, either, but fresh is great.
Yeah.
But for tinctures, which is when you steep the herbs in alcohols and the alcohol pulls out all the compounds from the herbs, dried is ideal because you can just fit way more in. This herb is amazing, is absolutely incredible. It feels so soft, right? It's also called nature's toilet paper. Because before we could just, this made up problem of needing to wipe our bums with toilet paper, which you need to pay for, we would use plants. And the most beautiful soft plant to use was mullein. So when I have my compost toilet in the near future, I'll have loads of mullein growing outside, and it will be, I'll just give my poop back to the earth where it should go. Oh, and my gosh.
It's plant-based?
Yeah, I mean, once it rots down for about a year, you could put it on your fruit trees around the base. But everyone says, no human oil. But in Japan a few hundred years ago, they would be carting out poop from the towns to give to the farmers. It was so precious for fertilizer for the gardens. That plant also grows about 6 foot tall, and the little yellow flowers are really good for earache. So you just steep them in olive oil and use them for earache. And then that same flower head will dry out, and you can dip it in wax and create a big candle or a torch, and that's what the Romans used to light up the way. So learning these stories is like, wow, I'm just reliving or walking in the footsteps of the people before us. Now, John, smell this one. I don't know why I sniffed the microphone. Pass that around. Just take a piece and pass it around. Is that reminiscence to you? You can break it. Don't taste it. It's grown outside the front of my house because apparently it deters bad spirits and things like that. All right, so I'm going to give it to you guys. Someone says sherbet at the front here, which is a great.
Yeah.
Haribo cola bottles. Yes.
Oh yes, now you got it. No.
So that's what often called the cola plant. It's called Southernwood.
Wow.
It's amazing for parasite cleansing, but also it was also known as lad's love because, like in folklore, they would say to pin it to an eligible bachelor's shirt, and it would attract a lady.
Oh, righty.
And I won't take too much
nice.
time. It's beautiful. It can be used in cocktails as well. Anyone know
I
what
love
this one is? Anyone know what that is?
Should we hand it round?
Yeah. This is, again, a plant that just grows in sort of scrubland and wasteland.
Is that meant to attract the ladies?
Well, it's funny you should say that because actually ladies that were looking to manifest their dream husband would put this under their pillows.
Right.
But it goes by the Latin name Achilles. And the reason why it goes by Achilles is because it's named after Achilles, because Achilles, the famous sort of what was he? Warrior, knew the power of this plant and would give it to his men, and they would heal faster to fight more wars.
Heal,
yeah, exactly. This plant is called Yarrow. It has an amazing compound within it to stop bleeding. So if I cut myself in the garden, which often I grab my mullein, I crush it up, and I just put it on the wound and I'll stop bleeding. Same, it can be used on sprains and things like that. You can dry it and make balms and all sorts. And then I mentioned that I had real bad anxiety and stress at times, and I just did the sort of commercial thing to do, I guess. And, living in cities, who do you turn to? You turn to, you go to the doctors. and I was prescribed antidepressants and beta blockers, and something that I was always very sort of hesitant of, and I didn't actually go through with taking these things, but it was so easy to get them, which surprised me. I wish they said to me, you could start incorporating this herb into your lifestyle, whether it be a tea often or making a tincture with it. Does anyone know what this is? No, that's good for seasonal depression. You can break that one and rip it.
Lemon verbena? No.
Close. Yes, someone mentioned it. Lemon balm, yes. This is the original anxiety relieving herb, and this grows like in the cracks of the pavements. If you're ever feeling stressed or anxious, make a tea with this. Even the ritual process of making the tea will make you feel calm. So there's a few things that I brought. And talking of old things, I made this basket with willow that I picked from the side of the river. And I'm from the city, and I used to love new shoes and latest things, and now I enjoy making willow baskets.
I think an interim round of applause for the herb man.
I just ran around and picked those before leaving this morning.
Some people are on different steps on their. It's like AA. Some are on their different steps to the sort of journey of herbal understanding.
Yeah.
Some people here are probably very close to herbal understanding. But what if for those living in the city, you mentioned that you wished you'd done more with the small real estate that was available to you. Mm-hmm. I was going to the Leon office, which is in Copperfield Street near the Tate Modern, and I went past a cherry blossom tree. I was thinking, I've never noticed that before. I wonder whether anyone in the office who works at Leon has ever noticed that. That's 20 metres from our restaurant. So it is possible to start opening our eyes and to look up. I mean, you went through a process of having to open your eyes and becoming more aware. Looking back at your time in the city, do you think that you were struggling with awareness and consciousness of what was around you?
Yeah, definitely. And still to this day, I'm fighting it. You know, being online and social media means that I spend a fair amount of my time on screens, and it's something that I'm really trying to find a balance of. But then if I am like, and I don't like saying this, but if I have to be the person to sort of persuade my community on social media to spread this message, then I'll do it. But yeah, when I was in the city, I had my blinkers on, my blinders on, you know, I didn't know what, I couldn't name what tree was what or what plant was what on the floor, and I rarely even looked. Now I find myself looking in the cracks of the pavement for what plant is growing in the cities, and it does intrigue me. I will say though that there is a lot of green spaces in London, and there's a vast, you know, it's green for a city, so you will be able to find everything that I bought out of that basket in London parks or woodlands and things like that. It is there. So it is just sort of finding that new hobby, really, because I think when you live in cities, you've got this abundance of entertainment to outsource. I outsource all of my entertainment, spending money on entertainment. Now the entertainment is from doing these things, and that is a beautiful thing to be entertained by. I grew up, as I said, in cities and had this mindset of, I didn't go to university, obviously I became a chef, but it was like, you know, work as hard as I possibly can, get money, secure a mortgage, and then work to pay it off, and blah, 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 blah. Like, and it does feel a bit like an entrapment now looking at it, and I've got this mortgage hanging over my head that I wish I didn't. I made a big decision 5 years ago where I decided to leave London and venture off to go and grow my own food. And that is when I got into that, out of the renting a home, which is, you know, takes the most of your money, and it takes a lot of your time to actually raise that money to pay it, to then getting a mortgage. And then I'm caught in this cycle where I have to do all the social media. I have to do, that was my job. That's my job. I have to do all these events. I have to work to then pay it. So I'm caught in this entrapment. I wish 5 years ago, when I decided to leave and move to the country, I thought to myself, well, I don't need this size house. I just need enough space to grow enough food for my family and I. That would have greatly reduced the amount of overheads in terms of like, I probably wouldn't have even needed to get a mortgage because you can get some affordable land. Then I don't need to work as much. I don't need to be on social media as much. And I can be more present with my family and my baby. That's all I'm trying to achieve now. And that idea of the rat race, creating businesses, getting a mortgage, and just doing all that stuff is just prison to me now. And yes, I guess we get a lot of fulfillment by creating a business and offering it to people and helping people. But I think we need to try and get outside of the mindset of we need to do it in a corporate way. And I don't have the answers, really. I'm just trying to figure out myself. I'm pretty rubbish with money. But all I know is I'm going to get rid of this stupid mortgage. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to buy some cheap land. And if we need to live in a yurt for a time being as a family, we'll do that as long as we can grow our food and we've got water and we've got fuel in terms of trees on the land. I've got everything I need for my family to secure survival. And that sounds like I'm scared of something's going to happen. I'm not. I just think that once you've got that, then you can be present with your family. And I don't know who was here, but I said it at the fermentation workshop, that this proverb of the fisherman. Sorry for the people that are hearing it again, but there's a businessman sat on a bench in a harbour, and a fisherman comes back each day and he watches him, and the fisherman comes back with half a net of fish every day. And the businessman says to the fisherman one day, why don't you come back with a full net of fish? The fisherman says, well, then what? He said, well, you'll be able to sell the excess and you'll be able to get another net and catch even more fish and sell even more. And he says, well, then what? He said, well, then you'll be able to get another employee on your boat and you'll be able to get even more nets and even more fish will come back and you can make even more money. He said, well, then what? He said, well, then you get a new boat and you go further afield and you get even more fish to sell. And then the fisherman says, well, then what? He said, well, only then you'll be able to sit down, put your feet up and enjoy time with your family and enjoy the fruits of your labor. And the fisherman says, well, I do that now. And that's the life that I'm trying to do now. So I'm trying to get out of this entrapment of mortgages and rents. A lot of the time that's hard to do in a city because it costs so much to live in cities. That's why I left London. And I'm trying to do it as humbly as possible. So I'm very fortunate and privileged to be able to think like this. But I'm determined now to break free from all these things so that I can be present and encourage other people to break free and be present.
I think that's a great answer. But if one is, I mean, is it fair to say that the countryside is a slightly? I've just come back from New York. Do you have buy? I think I should be buying something more complicated than this, but I'm almost a boomer, so I buy like a normal milk for flat white and everything with cow's milk, and it's a hot drink. And then they switch it around. You're like 20% tip, 25% tip, or 30% tip. I feel like I can't go anywhere in New York without being bankrupt. So is there a trap that one has in the city where even the cost of an Oyster card or the cost of, life having to exist in the city, that it's a more difficult ask in the city to do that? What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I do think that cities are this prison that's been created, and it's so hard to get out because it's got the entertainment, it's got your friends, it's got anything you want at the touch of your fingertips, and it's hard to leave. And the countryside is intimidating and boring. But I was more lonely living in London than I was when I left and started building my tribe of people around me in the country. And I now talk to my neighbours. I didn't really talk. You don't talk to people in the city, and the neighbours offer you help, and you offer them help. And it's like, wouldn't it be great if we could all have a little garden, and we all took pride in our garden. We all grew our food, and each little garden was like a patchwork, and it was just a beautiful mosaic of beauty. And it would take down this industrial farming, and we would then, we're voting every time we spend our money, aren't we? So every time we spend our money on plastic, we're keeping it alive. And I think reconnecting to the old ways and nature and foraging and learning about the plants is maybe will take the shine away from the sort of I don't know, the city when it dangles in front of you with all its convenience, when you learn about the slower ways and the joys of the things that are free, then only then maybe you'll start to think, actually, I don't need this. I don't need the latest pair of shoes, or I don't need this fancy car, or this house, or this fancy place in London, do this. I don't know. I chased after it all.
A friend of mine has a massive motorboat, and it's the biggest motorboat he can get in his marina in Lymington. And in his motorboat, he's got that book Cabin Porn on the desk. And I'm like, wow. Like, you've got the biggest motorboat in the world, and your aspiration is to have a small wooden hut. And that's your goal. And that's the book you've got in the boat. And I thought it was quite an interesting psychological phenomenon. Alan Watts said of words, they are a great servant, but a terrible master. And I sometimes think about that with social media. It's a great servant, but a terrible master. So I think having the ability to know when you are actually being led by social media, not using it, and having a conscious set of rules that say, okay, now it's become my master. And the other thing I say is that if you're going to be into well-being, into real estate well-being, which is best an extension of feng shui or feng shui, as some people say it, then, the Chinese they have star luck, they have earth luck and personal luck. So your star luck is your star signs. Your earth luck is the physical environment around you. And then your personal luck is actually what you do personally to drive that. And you're talking in real estate about earth luck. It's really the energy of that environment that you're creating. You've got to embody and live the benefits of living earth luck, right? Earth luck in an urban environment is feng shui. In a more rural environment, it will be a more natural set of, even if it's semi-curated through farmland, a more natural set of earth luck. But we've got to learn to create earth luck in how we design our houses and how we live in them. If you come across as grasping, if you come across as off balance, if you come across as someone seeking social media, you might be having the amplifier and the speakers, but the CD, the information, the data, the personality of your energy that goes through the speakers, through the app into the speakers, will be inauthentic. So I think that the more that you can stay grounded and say, I'm not owned by this social media, you might not need as many followers, because the CD, the song that's being played, which is your energy, which is your personal luck, that you're transporting over to the earth luck, will be more powerful. So I think that you may have to do much less if your energy, because then people will share it much more if they resonate with that non-grasping. And there's a great thing in the Bhagavad Gita, which is to give up all fruits. So the ego is attached to the outcomes, right, guys? The ego is attached to the city outcomes of ego: money, fame, protection. But when the ego is not grasping and not off balance, and it's kind of got those in it's slightly gently aspiring to those, but not desiring them, not grasping them in Buddhist terms, then you're centered, you're not off balance. And people can see that in you, Dawn, that you will not be off balance, you'll be centered, and therefore people will follow you. That's my expectation. And don't need to do it. Yeah. No, it doesn't. Thank you. So Gaz, you're we're going to come on to more questions from you guys in a minute, but look, let's talk about, I'm sure you've got your whole YouTube, we can subscribe and stuff, but just 3 little tips for people living in the city or the countryside that they can do tomorrow. They can say, I loved Gaz, and I'm going to start these 3 things today. What might they be? Things for them to start. It's tomorrow, but it will be today. What should people do?
Find out where your food's coming from. I think this detachment from where our food's coming from is such a problem.
It's coming from Leon.
I think even if that's just popping down to like your farmer's market, meeting the farmer, they'd be so proud, I should say, of their produce, and it's healthier. You can pinpoint the area where it's grown. Failing that, and you want to grow your own food, turn that balcony into a little farm. Or if you have a garden, which is a luxury in the city, I know, turn the lawn into a farm. The lawn is the greatest scam that's ever existed. It was a thing that the aristocrats did to prove how much wealth they had, just by having empty space and grass. And it'd be one aristocrat looking at the other's land thinking, oh, he's got more grass than me, he must be doing better than I. Then us folk thought, when we have a garden with just grass, then we've made it in life. No, it's a terrible waste of space, and now we're having to then go to the supermarket to buy our food. If you go back just 100 years ago, 150 years ago, each of our even terraced houses in Cardiff would have had a vegetable garden or vegetable beds growing a lot of food. Now there's astroturf and a trampoline. Think about maybe installing some garden beds. This gentleman at the front has just told me today that he's in London got some from some vegetable growing beds, and that therapy in the evening, I'm sure, of just sowing the seeds or being out tending to your plants, just fills up your cup amongst like a very busy environment living in the city. If you don't have any space at all to grow any food, then there's allotments, there's community growing spaces. Failing all that, you can grow stuff on your windowsill. You can grow mushrooms in your bathroom. You actually can. I do it. It's fun.
My daughter moved into an apartment in Ealing, and it had loads of mould in there.
There's plenty of ways, but I think it all starts with learning where your food is coming from, because then it's like a seed and it's a catalyst. Because then you look at some processed food and think, I can't eat that. Where's that coming from? The more local, the better for you. The more seasonal, the better for you. The less packaged, the better for you. You've got to avoid plastic as best as we can. That's another one.
Gaz, the sort of herbs that you've just given out here, do you know Sebastian Pole? He started Pucker Herbs with his partner, whose name, does anyone know Sebastian Pole? He's got this fantastic seed company, having sold Pucker to Unilever and regretted it. He's now got these herbs, and it's all medicinal plants. So it's not just like just general. There's no such thing as general plants, right? But it's particularly medicinal plants, and I think it's called Herbal Reality. Okay, I think is the seeds are the seeds. But if people wanted to grow some things like this, are some of them growable on the ledge in the kitchen, or how would you do that?
I mean, all of these plants I showed you today can grow as weeds, and if you think about herbs, your culinary herbs have dual purposes. They're also medicinal. They just need to be used in the right dosage and the right amount of consistency, whether it be coriander, parsley, oregano, rosemary, sage. Sage and rosemary, the first thing, and thyme, are herbs I pick up when I've got a sore throat or a cold coming on. So culinary herbs, things that you have dried in your pantry, can be used for medicinal. But all of those ones you could just find in a park now, and I wish we could get up and walk out with the mics and I'd take you to a park and we could pick them. We might even not even make it to the park. We may find a crack in the pavement and I'd be able to pick you some yarrow, and it's medicine. Then it's like it fighting to show you that the people that walked these lands before us knew, and it's just a reminder.
I mean, we spoke about even the bird song earlier. And there's a great guy whose name I'm going to remember in a minute. Who's the guy? Sam Lee, is it? Does anyone know Sam Lee? I think he goes and sings with nightingales.
No.
And I went on this singing with nightingales, and he was explaining how we used to be able to listen to birdsong. And when people say the phrase, "a little bird told me," that was because we knew that there was a certain birdsong that would be like, there's a fox coming with two cubs.
Wow.
So people could listen and go, there's actually a wolf coming with two cubs, and then a wolf would come with two cubs, because they would listen to the bird telling the other bird. And now we think it's just noise. We think it's just Spotify playlists for bedtime. But they might be saying, wake up, you idiot, and we'll be just going to sleep with them. However, our ability to understand what's really going on about us, we've lost 99% of it, right? Some of it may be lost forever. But what would you say to those people who are thinking, I've been dragged here. I don't even buy into this. How can you help those people experience? Would you like to do some foraging with Leon, as you've said, and go take some of the club members foraging how can we convert the unbelievers, the non-believers?
That would be cool, yeah. And that's something I really want to do in the future is bring people to the land that we get, create heaven, create paradise, and then show people what they can do in their outdoor space. Um, it's been a long old journey. I mean, we talk about bird song, and I will get back to the question, but like even the sounds, the music that I listen to has completely changed. The clothes that I wear, the things I put on my skin, the materials I have on my bedding, the foods that I eat, everything's dramatically changed since reconnecting. So I think it's not like, it's hard to pinpoint one thing, but it's just, these things have just happened one after the other for me. How do we convince the most stubborn person? Wow. I think as humans, innate within us all, we have this affinity and we love nature. We just maybe just need to peel back a few layers and show that it is we are connected to it and we're not separate from it. I need to keep reminding myself that, because sometimes we think of ourselves as like higher than or bigger than nature, but we're just fitted into it. I think food is a real good way of convincing people through flavors and tastes and senses. But, just spending a day in the garden, even if it's something new that I'm picking up, which is scything, cutting the grass with a scythe, the thing that the Grim Reaper holds, not a loud, noisy petrol lawnmower. Doing it just a day of that is like being at a spa and listening to the birds as I do it. It's just amazing. So I think just like, I can't wait to have that time where I take people foraging, or we invite people to the land and we just do an intensive day of planting, sowing seeds, harvesting, cooking over fire, and just reconnecting. There's like a bacteria in the soil that is a natural serotonin booster. We should have dirt under our nails. I'm quite embarrassed that I don't have much under my nails right now, but I was doing my workshop earlier, I had to cut them short. But yeah, I think you need to be in it to then feel it and then understand.
But Rob, why don't we go to your question first?
Okay. Have you considered doing that in a community? So you're talking about getting rid of the mortgage, getting a bigger bit of land. Would you consider going in with other families?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we need to think outside the box really to figure out how we can reconnect to the land. And land in the UK is particularly expensive because we are a small country, really. I look at like the US or mainland Europe, and it's like dirt cheap for land. And I've thought to myself, but having just had a baby, I can't be as selfish. If I was in my position now and single, I would go abroad just to get that connection, to be able to live off the land. But I'd be shooting myself in the foot really, because we need community around us. We need families with complementary skills that maybe know how to do a skill that us as a family don't have, and that is how it was a few hundred years ago. The local town would have a blacksmith, a willow basket maker, a grower of food, a dairy farmer. We would all work together in unison. So a community is so important, and I think that's something that is ever growing is families getting fed up, joining forces with families, and it's all going on around the UK now. You can see it on social media. In terms of our position, we're actually going to probably do intergenerational living. So we'll live with my parents-in-law. Could end up in a disaster, but I'm joking. As long as there's a buffer zone in terms of our houses.
Meet the Fockers.
Yeah. No, they're amazing. I'm so blessed to have met my fiancée Tegan and her family, because you don't just get into a relationship with your other half. It's their family too, and I'm so lucky. So that could be a case of a way in which we get land. But I have an online community that is constantly giving me feedback and help in the comments. Some hate as well. That's fine. You used to get used to it. But what we've done lately is open a shop in our local town, because high streets are dying all over the UK, and we love our town of Abergavenny. So we opened a little farm shop that has local craftspeople's products and some stuff from our garden. And that's like a stepping stone for us before we get our land, to build this in-person network of people that will help us, and we can help them when we get the land too. So it's so important. You cannot do it on your own. And I had such an individualistic mindset when I left the city, because that's what you're thought, as you grow up, you're like, all siblings will go off in their separate ways here in the UK, and then we're all struggling to start off with. We all just stuck together. It'd be a lot easier.
It reminds me of a phrase from, you'll be familiar with, like, one of the literal books of Taoism, the Tao Te Ching, like 600 BC, and it says, to have knowledge, add something every day. To have wisdom, take something away every day. And I think the noise is the thing that we need to take away. And I think Osho, who ended up being a megalomaniac and completely screwing up his commune because he had loads of Rolls Royces. It was sort of commune where he was in charge and took all the money. But he did have a good phrase, which was, I've never met a wise professor, but I've met many wise farmers and fishermen. To your fisherman story earlier. And I think the wisdom that you are experiencing by taking things away and by, experiencing nature, which is much more wise than our frontal lobe is a great role model to people. What would you say is the model for a sort of, to Rob's point, a commune? Joking aside, does someone need to be in charge?
Yeah.
Mark, you be in charge. Yeah.
I mean, actually, I wouldn't know, because it's hard, isn't it? Because when you grow up in cities, you don't talk to your neighbour. To suddenly live and share assets and land and whatnot, it seems so daunting. I do know it's important, but who knows? Does someone need to be in charge? I think you should come together maybe once a week, discuss, and then act upon. I don't think any one person should be in charge. It should be a collective.
Okay, strange. So Tony, I'm joking, by the way. So, I'm just thinking about Leon. Tony, what was your question? So the question was, do plants feel energetic disruption in the same way, or chemical, or
do they keep us rich? Do the chemicals
affect them? Okay, great. Gaz.
It's a good question. I think I was getting a little bit nerdy the other day and looking at the effect of playing different types of music on pots of rice. And when they put in a certain type of music on one of the rices, it got really moldy and bacteria grew and it looked a bit ugly after a few weeks. And then on the rice that was played like classical music, it was clean and it looked fresh. Same thing with water and structure of water. Yeah, so like, if you write happy words on a bottle of water, it's said that the structure is of the water is better for you. And, just touching on that, like the pipe work that brings our tap water in that is drinkable is not necessarily good for creating nice structure of water. So when I have my future garden and we need to tap into the water source and utilize that natural water. In terms of the plants, though, that you see in the city, when I see the dandelion come up through the cracks, or the yarrow or the mullein in the scrub land, I think to myself, nature's healing. And there's a great book called One Straw Revolution, which is about natural farming. And the argument is against sort of industrial farming and chemical fertilizers and pesticides and all that stuff. And the question's raised that, what would you do if you just left like a field, because it's based in Japan, a field of rice that was once industrially farmed, you just left it.
Yeah.
Would the land regenerate itself? And it would. Nature has a power of healing itself. So the right weeds and the right plants would grow in that maybe compacted soil or nitrogen deficient soil. The right plants would come and grow to revitalize that soil. So when you see dandelion, when you see dock, when you see comfrey or mullein or yarrow growing, the soil is saying it needs this plant growing there to help the structure. Now, it's a lot harder when there's concrete paving stones blocking it, but it's a way in which, for me to see that nature will survive and it will take back over, and we're worthless, we're useless. It will come back if we allow it to. So I think plants definitely feel it, but it knows how to regenerate.
I remember you saying that before you were following trends and then you kind of found your voice. How do you go about finding your voice and being authentic online and your niche?
Well, I was lucky that in terms of my voice, I guess, I don't think I found my voice. I mean, if you asked me to do this podcast like 6 years ago, I don't think, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but I don't think I'd have anything of use to really tell the audience other than my lived experience of working as a chef, of starting the social media and growing it to a size that it, is quite cool. But I didn't find that voice until recently, really, and this newfound sort of wisdom from the plants and the old ways. I was lucky that when I started sharing my social media stuff, there was like a big influx of people interested in plant-based food, and that helped. And of course, being a trained chef, I was able to share decent content. However, someone left a very poignant comment on my channel a few years ago, and it was on quite a reflective video, and they said that I really love, this is something along the lines of, you become way more authentic, there's less desperation in your eyes. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I was quite offended at first, and then I watched back some of the old videos, and I was just like, I wasn't my authentic self. I didn't have the voice. I didn't have the wisdom. I was just following the trend. Oh, this does well on social media now. Let's do this. Put my spin on it. But there was no substance there. And I think I was lucky to build that platform and do all the fun things that came with it. But the sort of success was only measured by the success of the social media or the monetary value that came with it. But now that my success doesn't revolve around that at all. So if it ended tomorrow, I know what I would want to do, and I'd be probably a lot happier and way more at peace without my phone going off every 2 seconds.
If you were to point to some inspiring or magical moments that have come from your relationships with Tegan or your friends, or anything else where you've thought, wow, this is why I did this. This is why I put all of that work in. Are there any particular
I think I can actually hear my baby. Is that you, T? It is. Come on through. I think is a really great question to end on, because I was listening to a podcast on the way down, and I was telling you how authentic I was living, a few years ago, and now I feel like I'm living my true authentic self, and I put it all down to nature and connecting to the land. But if I didn't connect to the land in the first place, I wouldn't have settled down with Tegan, because I was just like, I was just being a bachelor, I think. And it gave me grounding to be able to be ready to settle down and meet Tegan. She came into my life at the perfect time. And then I think I owe all the opportunity to think outward and reconnect and do what I do. I put it down to having her as my love. And then Willow, my daughter, now has given me the most determination to provide, not financially, but provide all the things that we could possibly need as a family to ensure our survival, but more so to be present and be happy. So actually, I think having the grounding of being with Tegan, being in love with her, and her loving me back for who I am, is giving me the base to be able to do what I do now.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, we are absolutely going to end it right there. That's a brilliant ending. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's have an even bigger round of applause for Willow, for Tegan, and for the wonderful, handsome Gaz Oakley, everybody. Let me put this down and give you a clap.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks so much. Amazing wisdom.
No, congratulations.